Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is one of the most influential comic book artists of the modern era, Ryan Stegman. Ryan is best known for his legendary run on Venom, a series that didn't just succeed, it absolutely exploded. His work helped redefine the character for a new generation and cemented him as one of Marvel's premier artists. He also recently served as the lead artist on X-Men, carrying the weight of one of the most iconic franchises in comics. In addition, Ryan has contributed to major titles such as Wolverine, Spider-Man, Spawn, while also creating his own standout IP such as Vanish. Ryan isn't just handsome, smart, and insanely talented. He's also generous. And he was kind enough to lend those talents to my own indie series, Death Shroud, which makes this episode all that special. So with that said, Ryan, man, how are you doing?
Good. I'm just coming off a long day of drawing comic books, so as I am most days of my life.
The grind. The
Yeah.
grind is real. So for today's podcast, again, I want it to be educational, get to know, your whole legacy, your journey, breaking into the comics, and kind of insights and insider information behind the scenes. So
Mhm.
as it relates to comics, we always got to do the origin story. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got into comics and some of the initial challenges to break in?
Yeah, sure. So I started by there used to be a website called Digital Webbing, which was a forum, a message board, which now they're all just on Reddit pretty much. But it was you would go there and you would post your art and people would critique it and you'd talk to people about comic book art and everything. And like Ryan Otley was there, Mahmoud Asrar was there, some other guys that are in the industry now. I'm blanking right now, but a lot of guys. And we were just young guys that were trying to figure out how to do this thing. And I posted. I just kept I kept doing more samples. I'd get the critiques. I try to incorporate what I learned and get better and better. And then finally, there was a guy named Tony Lee, who is a British comic book writer, who saw my stuff and he offered me a job drawing a book called Midnight Kiss for Marcosia Press. And at the time, I would get offers all the time, but they were always like, for exposure. I haven't written it yet, but I have this idea. Do you want to do it? This one was like he had a publisher, he had a script, he had, there was going to be a little bit of money, albeit, like it turned out to be like less than minimum wage, but that was because I was also slow. But I jumped at that opportunity because I wanted this is what I wanted to do, and to make any money off of it was amazing. And then I did that book for 5 issues, and I kind of had that as a calling card. Then I had a actually physically published book with a trade, and I met these guys, the Dable brothers, and I had shown them my stuff, and then they had an opening on this novel adaptation called Magician Apprentice, and I did that book, and it's not my best stuff, obviously, but I was learning. I mean, you can see the evolution of my art throughout it. And then Marvel bought that company, um, and so all of a sudden I had Marvel editors, and I would, I really took that time to be like, hey, what can I do to improve? Because normally, a guy that gets a job at Marvel is good enough to be there, and they know it. Well, whereas I was just all of a sudden there, and I'm like, hey, like anything you can tell me how to improve, And I think that it was Mark Panicia, and he really kind of took a liking to me because I think he saw how hungry I was and how also, I mean, I was also young. I was, 23, 24 years old. Um, and I think he saw that when he would tell me something to think about when I was drawing comics, that it would actually happen on the next samples that he saw. So he, when I finished Magician Apprentice, he gave me some Marvel Adventure Spider-Man, and I did 2 issues of that, and then they gave me uh, some She-Hulk, Red She-Hulk backup stories in Incredible Hulk. And that was like my first foray into the actual Marvel universe. And then after that, they gave me Incredible Hercules, and then I've been working ever since. So basically, once I did that Midnight Kiss book, I've worked nonstop ever since, which is kind of interesting to think about because I'm 44, so this has basically been 20 years of my life. Uh, but it was kind of, there's a lot of luck involved in there, and I don't necessarily know that I should have been, uh, where I was all along the way, but I'm grateful that it all happened that way.
I think you've mentioned in the past to throw some support to the Stag woman, Erin.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
She played a big role in kind of helping um, keep you in a position where you can just dedicate day and night to master your
Hmm.
craft. I think I remember you even mentioning to I think even maybe on an old podcast that we had of just like having kind of on your early days, especially when you're young breaking in, that additional financial support to kind of help you get
Hmm.
through it initially can be very I think for any artist. That's why the notorious the starving artist initially until you make it make a name for yourself.
I was incredibly lucky in that first when I started aiming for this, I'd gone to college. I'd gotten a degree in something completely unrelated. And then I was able to move back in with my parents, and just the fact that I could go and do this job from their house um,
Hmm.
was pretty, that's lucky. So I don't know how that scales out for anybody else that's trying to do this thing. Um, but and then I had my wife who we started dating, and she started making money uh, as a school psychologist, and we just I mean, we had a great time. Like, she would hang out. We lived in an apartment together, and she would hang out in the room with me while I was drawing, and she would like do her work or play video games on her computer, whatever. And we didn't go out. We didn't have enough money to really do anything, um, which was probably good because. But I mean, I was at that point. I was just like around the clock, working like a madman. I
Yeah.
hadn't really quite learned that you have to sleep or anything. I wasn't old enough to understand that.
What so I could probably guess some of I mean um we both kind of grew up with some of the big the Todd McFarlanes and the Capullos,
Mhm.
but who any other big artistic influences that really impacted you when you were kind of finding your voice?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was right in the middle of the heyday of, Mark Silvestri, Joe Madureira, um, J. Scott Campbell. Like, these were all my heroes. Uh,
Hmm.
and then, obviously I branched out from there, but those were like my entry point when I started reading comics. And then, you start to discover other things and go off from there. But those are the guys that are baked into my DNA for sure.
um what would you say, like in the early days of your career, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had to master, uh like coming up with panelings, layouts? Like, what were some of the things that were did you find the hardest initially?
I mean, I found it all pretty hard, honestly.
Yeah.
But I would say that I uh, initially you don't understand the workflow, how to get from
Mm.
point A to point B on a project. So the young version of me would I would have trouble with a panel, and so I would leave that one unfinished and move on to the next one, and then
Mm.
have to come back at the end and draw all the difficult panels, right? So then that was hell, right? Like, it's like you're gonna wake up this one day and you're like, I have to draw all the shitty ones now. Um, so that was a mistake. I also feel like I wouldn't really figure out my layout. Like, if you can't draw it small, then you're not gonna be able to draw it big, right? Like, if you can't
Mhm.
draw it easily at a small size, then why would you think that you were just suddenly going to be able to get it right on the final? So, uh, stuff like that, I had a lot of trouble with, and then I also had trouble with the idea of working by myself.
Mhm.
Um, it's so much different now. Like, I remember there. I mean, there was no podcasts. you could find stuff on the internet to kind of like keep you entertained, but you'd get kind of bored. There was, um, but then then Skype came out, and then I started finding like comic book friends, and we could talk while we were drawing or whatever. So that helped. But just staying at my desk and having to sit there in total silence was, insane to me. And yeah, so like all kinds of stuff like that. You just there's all kinds of stuff that crops up. I remember pages taking me like 40 hours at the beginning, because I just didn't understand I was so bent on making it perfect that I would almost like measure out every ounce of the drawing, like
Right.
to this degree that was like if I drew a building, everything that was on it,
Had to
I
be.
knew everything about perspective. I taught myself every ounce of it, like as though I was an architect. And then I would almost like build it through architecture rather than just drawing it and figuring it out as you go along. So there's all kinds of things that you learn along the way, and sometimes it takes longer than it should for you to learn those things. But I knew that I could make an image that people, like in the end, I would end up with an image that people would respond to, and I
Right.
knew I could do that. But getting to that is was difficult sometimes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about, because Ken revealed that in the previous podcast that you had a little bit of a unique way of creating like your stages to get to the final art, that you would have like a digital layer that you would blow up. And can you talk to me a little bit about that, because that was pretty cool to learn.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know how Ken differs, but every morning I basically, you can't see it. I'm in my office right now. I have a lazy boy over there in the corner. I walk into my office. I sit down in that lazy boy with my iPad, and I do a digital layout. Usually like that big,
Hmm.
and then I make it a little bit bigger. After this is figured out, make it a little bit bigger, refine it, and then I make it even bigger and refine that. That usually takes about 2 hours, and then I take that and I print it out in light blue on board,
Okay.
on artboard, and then I go in and finish from there. And if I've done it right, then most of the stuff is figured out, and then I'm just kind of like rendering and figuring out the lighting and all that stuff on the final.
Is there a reason why, or let me try to position this, like, so are you faster at, because it sounds like you do a little bit of a hybrid there, is it easier for you to just do all pencils, or is the pencil decision also because of you can, which is super important, you can sell original art? Because like Ken, he says that it's harder for him to do it digital, and it takes way longer for him to do digital than actually just pencils and erasing something quickly. And
No, I would say if I could do it all digitally,
you would.
um, well, like I think that I probably will do a project like that someday.
Yeah.
But as we'll probably get into later, original art is, first of all, I love it. Like that's the most. It is a great feeling,
Totally.
um, and it feels like you're doing like sometimes doing it all digitally can feel like a job,
Hmm.
whereas doing it traditionally, you get to play with all these toys. Like basically, all these tools feel like toys, and you're like, well, I'm going to try
Right.
this now. But I do think that like I could do. So it takes me about 6 weeks to do a issue now. If I did it all digitally, I think I could get it down to 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
I
Well.
don't know if it would look as good or if I'd be as happy with it. So I don't really know, but I do think that I can do it. It definitely speeds me up because there's not stops and starts along the way, and I don't have to scan it at the end. I don't have to do print it out. I don't have to, it's just like every once in a while I'll do a cover digitally, not like for friends or something,
Mhm.
not for Marvel. And I will, so I'll do these like fully digital things, and I just can't even believe how fast I can.
When you say 6 weeks, is that pencils or is that including
Yeah.
inks? Like you're just and then okay, so 6 weeks to do the pencils, and then every what 4 pages you're sending that batch off to the inker.
Yeah, pretty well.
Yeah.
No, actually, I mean, with JP Mayer, who inks my stuff, I will just set. He works off of Blue Line, so when you buy
Right.
original art from me, you get the pencils and the ink separate. So every
Mhm.
page I finish, I just scan it and send it in,
Right
and
away.
he's got it right away. Yeah, And so that's kind of how we do it.
How do you manage burnout from that? Like how does your wrist not just explode?
I
Like
don't
that,
know,
it's
but
insane.
I never have a problem with it. Like I can every once in a while I can get my thumb right here will start to get sore, and I'll have to take an Advil or something if I'm really like
Hmm.
really going hard. But otherwise, I have no wrist problems, nothing. Like people always ask that at conventions, how do you sign so many books without it? And I'm like, well, I think that I'm just made of iron at this point. I don't have any, you know.
And you've kept your, ladies and gentlemen, you can't tell, but Ryan is extremely ripped and jacked, and
Oh yeah,
he goes to the, but you actually go to the gym. Like you
yeah,
actually you've always been consistently going to the gym, and I think
yeah.
that probably also helps because if you
Hmm.
have a desk job, and you don't go to the gym, like your body is
Hmm.
just slowly deteriorating. So
Yeah,
that's
for
keeping
sure.
your strength up.
Hmm.
Um, so what? How different is it, jumping topics a little bit here, so how different is it working for something like Marvel that's a lot more corporate than when you got to do something like Vanish as an example?
Um, well, Vanish feels there's like a feeling to it that because you own it, there's a little difference, but at the same
Hmm.
time, you don't get this. You get this feeling from working on stuff for Marvel, like, oh my god, I can't believe I get to do this. You know, like
Hmm.
this is this. There's like this part of you that's like, I remember this from my childhood, and now I'm doing. So they both have their advantages, but also you feel a little. They're like something like X-Men, for example. Um, you feel very. There's always a deadline hanging over you
Hmm.
where you're disappointing so many people if you can't keep up, and so that
Hmm.
there's always that feeling. Whereas it's totally different with creator own because you're letting yourself down, which
Mm.
I can handle a lot better than letting other people down. But I mean, I kind of ended up working at the same pace for each, but just the
Okay.
stress of one seems to be more than the other.
Now that, I mean, you've been an insider for so long, what was kind of something that was the most shocking or most surprising once you were fully like inside Marvel, from then just being like a fan or a collector?
Hmm. Uh, you know, I don't know the answer to that. I think that because I can't really like put myself in those shoes anymore. I'm
Hmm.
like jaded, you know. But I will say, am I Chris Pacello lives near me, who I'd never seen at a convention. I'd never met him in person, and then I just kind of reached out and we started hanging out or whatever. And I was telling him, I was like, "You have no idea uh, how much I thought when I was a kid reading your stuff, and how because I wanted to be a comic book artist. I knew that. Like I was obsessed with these guys, and I said I fantasized about what your life was like." And then he kind of laughed, and I was like, "And now I know you're just a guy who also sits in his basement and draws comic books." And he was like, "Yep, exactly." You know. But like in my mind, it was like, "Oh my god, can you imagine like what his daily life like? People coming up to him on the streets, like,
He's on a
But
yacht.
really, it's just yeah, yeah, yeah." So yeah, that's the truth. The truth is, but then also, I guess that would be it too. Is that so? Like, I've had this conversation with Bocello. I've had it with Umberto Ramos, two of my favorite artists growing up, and we all do agree. Like, once, I mean, we all still love doing it. Like, it's the best, you know.
Hmm.
So, I guess that the thing is, I guess, is just realizing that like it doesn't ever get old. Every day is like a new adventure for what you're doing.
Yeah, it unlocks the inner child still, because you're
Hmm.
constantly tapping into that imagination. Like when I get the
Right.
opportunity to work on my own, like Death Shroud, like like projects, it's time, just you just get lost, you just get immersed into it, and it is some of the best. It's some of the best days that you have is just like building your imaginary world. So I can
Right.
see that.
I mean, I think to me, like, and I try to instill this in my children. Like one of my sons is getting into guitar right now, and he likes to like
Okay.
write his own songs and stuff. And I'm so excited because I'm like, I just, to me, the greatest joy in life is like creating something.
Yeah.
And uh, I always told them, I'm like, you probably have the, because creativity is kind of a superpower, but
Yeah.
it's not celebrated as much in school, right? But then later
Mhm.
you realize it's very valuable in the real world.
Mhm.
And so I always told them, like, you probably have this superpower, like, you know, you should
Mhm.
try using it. And they would do things here and there, but now they're starting to like grasp that, and I'm excited for them.
No, that's great to hear, man. Definitely encourage them in those pursuits because it's so easy in today's landscape to just be consumed by the screen, right? Like whether
Hmm.
that's the phone or the video game,
Right.
like whatever it is. So
Hmm.
that's great to hear, man. Honestly. Um, so talking a little bit about Venom for a second. So um, obviously, my favorite Venom run of all time. A lot of people's Venom, favorite Venom run, and definitely cemented you as like this legendary artist that will have this awesome legacy of forever changing for the better, a really cool character. Was there a moment where you realized like, oh shit, yeah, this is going to be fire? Like did you like when did you know that like this was you were onto something super hot with this?
Well, for me, I the moment that I knew it was going to be awesome was when uh, Donnie called me and told me what we were going to be doing in it.
Mhm.
Well, not what we were going to be doing, what he had in mind, which because he was pitching me on doing it, and then I was kind of like, I think I have to do this. This is amazing. But I feel like the weird part was I didn't even consider if it was going to be a hit or not. It wasn't even
Right.
like it wasn't my, yeah. Like I was just like, I think people will like this because it's freaking awesome, but I don't know that um, it ever crossed my mind like it was going to be as big as it was. I just
Mhm.
kind of like went about my business and drew it. I do remember Donnie at one point being like starting to get nervous before it came out. He's like, "You think people are gonna like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's awesome." And he like wanted me to say more, like explain to him why people are gonna like it. I was like, "I don't have an answer. It's awesome. Like, I don't know if it's gonna sell because it's Venom. Like Venom sells what it sells. It's not like this blockbuster comic all the time, but." I just assumed that those that read it would understand that it was sweet, and then it started like building and building, and then I realized like, oh my god, this is massive, and I was totally unprepared for that.
I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that when you created Knull, that you weren't sure if that was going to be like this big hit character. It was just kind of like a quick, like, let's get this done and then move
Hmm.
on. And then it turned into like this big, amazing villain. Is that true?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I knew that Null was like a centerpiece of the story, and I knew that the story of Null was awesome,
Yeah.
and I was excited to draw him. But um, it, the way that comics work sometimes is you get to a point and you have to just make it happen. And
Right.
so in my head, I had kind of visualized what he was going to look like,
Hmm.
and I had drawn some head sketches and maybe like two or three, and I
Hmm.
would text them to Donnie, and we would talk about them and whatever. And then one of them, he was like, "Yeah, I like that one." And then so the day came that I had to draw Null, and I didn't turn in a design at all. I just
Wow.
I did the doodle, on the side, and was like, okay, I think I got it. And then I just started drawing it. But again, no part of me knew that that was going to be this important. I didn't understand the speculator market. I didn't, because like that was all new to me. I
Right.
didn't understand that the speculators were going to go crazy because he's a new character. Like I'm glad I didn't know, because it probably would have, I would have had stage fright and maybe not done exactly what I wanted to do with him. And so yeah, I mean, I just drew him that day, and I remember turning it in, and I remember Donnie wrote back and he's like, "There he is," and that was that. Like we were off with Null, and that's where it started.
That's so epic because he's now, he's made his small appearance in film, but also in video
Hmm.
games, and
Right.
he's like a returning, a returning villain. So yeah, you definitely, again, not only did you have this standout Venom run, but you like created a new badass, like super powerful villain that he definitely deserves. I really do hope he gets a full justice in a film or something like that one day, because he definitely deserves it. And hopefully, what I hope is I hope we get an animation. I would love like a gritty animation to like do that arc, because I think an animation could probably do it more justice. I feel like you'd probably get more justice through like
Hmm.
like a 10 episode thing or something like that. But
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. That like it should be an animated series, and it should just be exactly what we did. Like it's ready to go. Just do it.
yeah,
Like you don't have to change
yeah,
anything. It's made for TV. Like you just do up from our start to King and Black, and that's that.
literally, yeah. All the storyboarding is
Yeah.
there. Like,
Hmm.
it deserves it. I hope one day. One day.
Hmm.
So switching gears a little bit, talking about kind of the economics a little bit of being in the comic space. So how important is, because you'll talk to certain artists and they'll purposely try to shy around it or not really acknowledge it, but if you're a collector or if you watch heritage auctions or any of these sites, like comic art is a big deal. So how important is and how much of an impact does original art have on an artist's ability to earn? And would you say that it usually represents over 50% of their income?
I think it does. Yeah. I don't know if it's for everybody. If everybody is that way, like
Mhm.
it wasn't that way. Before I started doing the bigger books, obviously. But yeah, it's I can't say exactly the percentage. I'm sure that we have documentation from our accountant that I could know, but I'm positive that they pay me more than I get paid by Marvel, and that's not to say that Marvel doesn't pay me well. It's just that the original art market is very robust,
Yeah.
um,
And it's, yeah.
and for good reason. I mean, you see these things and they go up in value, and um, you know, savvy people who have a lot of money seem to they buy stuff and it appreciates, and they can sell it later or whatever. So it ends up, if you do something like that Venom run where it's like a massive hit, people want that art really bad because it'll probably be worth more down the road. Um, and so yeah, I mean it's pretty lucrative, and yeah, a huge part of what I do.
How would you like, would you encourage uh, artists to work with, like you work with Felix, who's amazing, definitely one of the best art vendors around. And but I also see some artists will just um, facilitate themselves. And I will say my constructive criticism about that is sometimes in those scenarios it could take months to get to get your art, opposed to like if you buy something from Felix, it's like FedEx 3 days,
Mhm.
it's in your hand. Um, uh, but obviously there's he's gonna take a administration fee to be able to handle all the logistics of that. Uh, would you recommend artists to reach out to vendors like a Felix, or or like what's your take on working and your experience working with a vendor, an art vendor?
So I definitely I tried to do it myself initially,
Mm,
and I had so many issues because I'm not a businessman. I didn't know how to properly. I wasn't doing any market research. Um, I didn't have any idea how valuable my stuff was, and I also am a friendly person who, if pressed on it, like if somebody was like, "Yeah, I'd like to buy this. How much?" and I would be like, say, a price, and if they were like, "I don't know," I'd be like, "All right, fine, just this price." Like
right.
that's no way to run a business. You know what I mean? And so I realized I couldn't really handle it, and then I had an art dealer who ended up being a crook. We don't need to go
Oh
into that.
no. Oh, well, that's a good
um,
point that you brought up that though, because that's also something that could happen. So I'm
right.
happy that you brought that up.
Um, it, yeah, the information's out there. It's
Oh no.
he screwed over a lot of people, but
Oh.
um, I then I kind of got a sense at some point that something funky was going on, and so one day I was just like, I want all my art back. I'm gonna go to a different dealer, and I knew it was gonna be Felix because I had already called Felix and been like, hey, if I leave this guy, will you represent me? And he's like, absolutely, so. Uh, I went and pulled the trigger and did that, and yeah, I couldn't be any happier than I am with him. Like I think that there's several. I don't know how many there are, but I know that some of them are very reputable and very above board. There definitely are probably scammers at the lower end, so I'd be
Mhm.
wary of that. You might not want to do it until you really need to have somebody do it for you. Uh, but yeah, I mean, can't recommend it enough. I mean, it he Felix actually builds my market, you know, advertise, does all these things that I would never do in a million years. Like
Boy, you
I'd
got
probably take
amazing
like
e-blast. Like he's got a huge Rolodex of
right,
like high-end collectors. He's getting your art out
right,
in front of everybody.
hmm
And he can be the, like you said, the negotiator. It's like, no,
right,
this is what it is. It's like that you need somebody like that. So
right,
and it allows you to uh you know separate from having to deal with those shitty situations. So I
right,
think that sounds like a huge plus to seek out a
hmm
vendor, and I'm sure it's not just easy too. Like I'm sure, like to your point, you might want to establish yourself a little bit before reaching out to a vendor, because it's not just like they take anybody, because they want to ensure that there's a market and a bit of a demand there. But
hmm
I definitely think that once you start getting getting your name out there through getting published, it's worthwhile trying to have conversations with these guys.
right, for sure.
So let's talk about a fun, controversial topic in comics, which is AI. What is like, so I feel like AI, there's really, we're just at the very inception and there's a lot of hot takes about it. But being, an artist yourself, how do you like, what's your honest opinion on it and the use of it in comics right now? Or if you, or at least like in the interwebs of people posting and using it for art.
I would say it's a mistake not to make yourself aware of what it can do.
Yeah.
I don't use it. I don't use it for any of the. Anytime that I've even played with it, it
Hmm.
ends up being more of a hindrance to my thought process um, than just doing, letting myself flow
Yeah.
through a project. So, but I mean, I will play with it and see what it's capable of.
Hmm.
And some of it's frightening, quite frankly, like how good it can make something look.
Hmm.
But I think that if you're aware and you figure out how this is going, where it's going to head, then you you're ahead of the game. But my overall opinion of it is that it's going to be very homogenous. Um, it's that's just how it's going to be because it's all one hive mind, right? It's going
Hmm.
to make stuff that all looks the same. So your personal style has never been more important than now. Your personal brand has never been more important than now. And I think that personally, what I think will happen is that the people will start to want um, a they'll want the unique experience of a human mind over this other thing that they see over and over. So I think that it's
Yeah.
going to push creativity in as a human to new levels. I'm excited for a lot of things. Like I think, and I could be wrong. It could just be that everybody just accepts it. They're like, this is what we want. But like stuff like even like live music,
Yeah.
that will be a totally different experience now because that's the only place you can get it. Same with original art. We were just talking about it. Original art only exists because an artist there's no AI version
Yeah.
original art, right? Um, there's something about owning the piece that that artist labored over. So, in that sense, I'm not really afraid that like anything will happen to my career other than that I will be, you know, I will want to push myself more into into more creative directions, uh, and I'll always have the original art or whatever. But yeah, again, like I think that there's so many people that are hardline against it, and that's if that's the stance you want to take, fine.
Yeah.
But it's clearly going to happen. It's
Yeah.
happening.
It's happening. Yeah.
So to stick your head in the sand, I think is a mistake. Same as when I started drawing digitally for a while there. I did I made sure that I knew how
Yeah.
early on. I was one I had a Wacom tablet, uh, like when I was like 20, 21,
Hmm.
um, which then you couldn't draw on your screen. You had to draw on this little pad that went on your screen because I was like, I have to know how to do this because this is going to happen. And for a long
Right.
time, there was a stigma against using digital tools to draw comic books, and now everybody does it. And same thing is happening with AI. So you got to make sure that you stay on top of it.
I wonder if there'll be like a hybrid approach of like you draw the figures and then I'm just making up wild scenarios, but it's like you draw the figures and then be like, okay, AI do all the boring stuff. Like AI create the buildings for me in the background, do all of like the basic,
Hmm.
the stuff that no one, everyone wants to see Venom fighting. Um, if there will be like hybrids of that where it's like the physical is I don't know because that would also have implications to going back to your point of like the original art collectors like there will always be original art collectors and
Hmm.
movies like Blade Runner where it's like is that real wood. Things with AI will become so rampant that you won't know what is real both like across like video, music, whatever, and they're going to have to address that, and then that is going to have an opposite effect of like collectors, everybody wants the real deal.
Right.
So like the
Yeah,
original,
like a movie. A movie
yeah,
will come along at some point that will be all practical
fully,
effects, and we will all lose our minds
yes,
because we're
yeah,
like,
like
oh
the
my
old Star
god,
Wars.
like yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah, totally.
so but then there will be AI movies, and maybe they'll be good, maybe they'll be trash, whatever. But I think that it's certainly interesting. And then I also think that if you're a comic book artist and your goal in the end is to tell stories, right? Like for me, my goal, my passion is telling stories. I'm getting more into writing and all that stuff. And if my goal is to tell as many stories in my lifetime as possible, and there's something that can maybe at some point something can do the parts that I don't like to do, and I can tell more stories because of that.
Mhm.
Uh, we'll see. But like I think that there will always be the part of me that's doing the all the thinking. Basically, Grant Morrison said it in his quote. He said it's a companion, uh, which I believe to a degree. It's like you can you can't. It's not in our lifetime. It's not going to be able to think for itself. That's not how. Like this is it's all based on previous thought, right? At
Correct.
some point, they do believe that they will be able to come up with an AI that can, but that's apparently, as far as I've read, that's not coming until way later. So right now, it needs the human input, and if you can make yourself, uh, as an artist, you can, you know, make yourself the best input, being that you can already draw and you can input your own art into it. Maybe that'll lead to something. Who knows? But yeah, like I said, like I want to know as soon as I can what's possible. For the most part, though, anything that I see that's AI drives me nuts because I'm like, that's AI. I hate it. Like I don't
Right.
like the way that looks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a fair criticism. My concern is we're still so early and it's like, what does it look like 10 years from now? across the board, like, jumping on fun conspiracies of like, you could think of like, you won't be able to trust video. Like it will literally be like, you did this, you robbed this bank. No, I didn't, I swear. So it's going to be crazy how we're going to have to tackle all of that stuff. So I
Can I
guess
say one more thing about it real quick?
yes, absolutely, please do.
I just have to say this. I also think that that nobody wants this.
Yeah. Well, we've all seen Terminator.
That's the thing that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Is that so? Like I've already used it as a scheduling tool, and it's great at that. If it would just stop there, great. But the things that it's going to be used for, who wants this other than the billionaires that are going to make $1 billion off of it? Like,
literally.
But at the same time, it is an inevitability. Progress is, expected, even though, if that's progress, I don't know. But I just wanted, because I just kind of like, I feel like I gave it like a sugar coated review of it. In my heart of hearts, I fucking hate it. But, but like I'm saying, you just can't. That doesn't mean
you're
I
a realist.
have to ignore it, because that would be.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I said you're a realist. You understand that you can't. To your point, you can't just put your head in the sand. It's here, and it's only going to get better. So how do we work with it to the best that we can?
Correct. Yeah.
So again, talking then, that's a good segue of like longevity. Do you have any advice to like artists to how to like best, and Ken talked a little bit about this too, but because you're such like a legacy artist now, do you have any advice of like how to survive? Like some artists will come and go. Like how do you create longevity as a comic book artist?
Well, in my opinion, that simply comes down to you do it. If you love it, then you do it. And if you love it, and then people love what you do, then there's like no reason that those two things shouldn't continue to meet forever, right?
Right.
If you start to fall out of love with it, then that's, that sucks. I'm sorry. But I don't really see how you can fall out of love with it. I think that there can be, I've met people who are so jaded about the whole thing, and they're like, clearly they're annoyed that they can't just constantly get work from Marvel or DC.
Right.
But to me, I mean, this even goes back to the AI thing. To me, this is like, this is something I would do even if I wasn't getting paid.
Right.
Which is another way to say, like, even if AI, like, let's say worst case scenario, there's no such thing as comic book artists anymore. I would still be drawing. I just don't know in what capacity or for what, I might just, I mean, think about that. Like, you think that just because there's AI comics, I couldn't be doing a web comic that's my own stuff and that people wouldn't find joy in that, like, no. So I just think that if, like, again, like really the bottom line is at the very bottom of everything is if you love it, then do it. If you don't love it, don't do it, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think Todd McFarlane said this too, of the importance, and this kind of echoes what you're saying, the importance of constantly or consistently, staying as long as you can. I know it's not always by choice, but staying on a run as long as you can. Like, I mean, you guys did, what did you do? 35 plus books of Venom. And that didn't include King in Black and stuff, did it? I don't think so, right? That was like that's all extra outside of just the Venom.
I've never done the math on how much
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. So yeah, like it's and I think like fans, I can't speak for all fans, but I think fans like, when there's consistency over a run. I think they prefer that over constantly switching up every 5 books or whatever. But right. I understand there's challenges and logistics and economical reasons of why they do that too. But yeah, I think if you can stick on a series as long as you can is probably a good maybe a good piece of advice too, to not just dip out
Hmm.
if you can, because I understand it's winning those contracts as well.
Right.
Um, how so? This is an interesting question I have for you because specifically because of now of where um, where you are in terms of echelon and tier of an artist. How would you define success now for you compared to earlier in your career? Like, what is your next big like milestone for Ryan Stegman?
Oh, it's absolutely that I'm writing and drawing something that I do completely. You know, uh,
So like your own original series, is that what you're meaning?
well, that's the ultimate goal.
Yes. Okay.
Right now, I'm working on something at Marvel that I'm writing and drawing. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, there's a scoop. Um,
Ooh.
but that's to me, it's a little bit of a funny thing that I mean, you can debate it both ways. I have a friend who is a musician, and he and I were discussing this, and I was saying it seems weird to me, guys that just play music but don't write music, and he said no. It's weird when somebody the anomaly is when somebody can write music and play music because they're two totally different disciplines. So
Hmm.
in that way, I can see it. But to me, I feel like if you can tell a comic book story drawing, you can probably tell a story. You can probably write a story. I don't know if it'll be the best story, but um, I think that it's been a long time of us having separated the two things when I don't think they're as separate uh, as people think. Like in the old days when Jack Kirby and Stan were working together, or anybody with Stan, the artist had a ton of input on the story, and Stan was scripting over what they were doing, and so they all learned, in a way, how to do that stuff. Same with manga, where most of them are writer artists. So to me, the ultimate way to make a well, that's one of the most interesting things about comic books to me is how the less people can be involved to make something. So like technically, one person can write a story, draw it, letter it. They could do every single ounce of it, and
Right.
their vision would never be corrupted in any way. Which is, sometimes you can still get great art out of stuff made by committee, but I mean, there's no question to me that the best stuff is usually there's less visions involved.
Totally.
So that's what I want to do is stuff where I can get my vision is out there as unchanged as possible.
I mean, I totally echo that. I think um, there is this, and I feel like it's unique maybe to comic books, but I feel like there's this purposeful big division between the writer and the artist, and I
Hmm.
think my honest opinion is anybody can tell a story, like,
Right.
and the artist is like, if you can, if you're the one that's you're taking the script and bringing it to life and you're storyboarding it, and so obviously it goes without question that um an artist can tell a story just as good if not better. Like at the end of the day, I think and this is a hot take, but I think there's a lot of like pretentious, like at the end of the day you can either tell a fun story or you can't.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
for sure.
like that's what it just comes down to. Like everybody can tell a story, but it doesn't, like to your
Hmm.
point, doesn't mean that it's going to be good. But they really want to try to, in my opinion, in comics, separate like the two disciplines and make it so that there's, they're super dependent on one another, when it's like, listen man, if a really good artist can tell a story, then like he just imagine like being able to do your own indie projects, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you can save yourself, you don't have to pay an artist, and you're the writer of it, so boom, like you're saving so much money and you're gonna collect so much revenue from that. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Hmm.
um so moving on, what and again talking about legacy, you've done a lot in your career now. But is there anything that, as you kind of further evolve, that you hope fans will look back on and kind of remember about Ryan Stegman?
Um, I'm just proud of the things that I think have legs. I'm
Mm,
proud of, like Superior Spider-Man. That'll be, that's still a book that people bring up to me at conventions and talk to me about. And same with Venom. I think we're still in the thick of the Venom thing. Uh, but I think that creating things that really matter to people, like one of my favorite things that I get um, at conventions is this, guys that will come up to me and they're like, I was 14 when this came out. It's like Superior Spider-Man, or I was 11 years old and this was my first comic book. And now, here I am all this time later and I've been obsessed ever since. Like, that's the greatest feeling in the world because I remember, my first comic and what that felt like and how gung ho. Well, basically, my whole life changed because I decided right then I'm like comic book artist. That's what I'm going to be, and I stayed laser focused on that forever. So to me, that's the best thing. Is just like these people having this fond memory that they'll never lose of that feeling of the first time that they saw what whichever book. Um, because that moment was so special for me. So that I guess that would be the answer.
that's um, that's great, and I think you've also had, and I know we've touched on this a lot, but the unique experience of being able to forever have an impact on, you know, storylines that have changed for the better,
Mm-hmm.
like going
Yeah.
back again to Venom, of building out that lore, building out new characters, and that will be in comic book history forever.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I think there's plenty more to come, and I'm excited to hear that you still want to do ambitions about creating your own original stories,
Mm-hmm.
and doing those. So that's really exciting to hear. Last two questions. One, can you tease anything that you have potentially coming out, or things that are known that are coming out that people can be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing right now. So, like this project that I'm writing and drawing, I just turned in the script to issue one. So I'm waiting to hear back if I can get moving on the art for that. But I finished X Men, uh, you know,
Yep.
in the end of November or
Yep.
mid-November. So I've had a lot of time in between there, and I've been just pumping out covers like crazy while I
Yeah.
wrote. Oh well, and I will say the X-Men annual, that's something that
Yes.
I'm very excited about. I wrote an X-Men annual. I drawing some pages in it. Steve Scroce's doing the main part, and we got some art from Sanford Green in there. And there's it's a really cool, like, I don't know, it's like a short story. So I mean it's a full issue, but it's you have to like tell a whole story in one issue. And I think that we
Mhm.
came up with something really cool. And that's super exciting. So I have the X-Men annual, and then every cover on the planet is by me right now.
Right.
I have so
I just
many that
saw
you guys haven't even
Punisher.
seen. Yeah, the Punisher. I did that. That was actually, they asked me to do that on Friday of last week and said, "Can this be done by Monday?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And I did it over the weekend. And
Wow.
yeah, so there's a ton of stuff like that coming.
So on the covers, and I don't think this is a good question. I didn't ask you this previously. Covers seems to be also really important. Like once you can build up your brand,
Mm-hmm.
covers is also a really great way to bring in that extra, because covers sell for premium on terms of
Mm-hmm.
original art, and it's just one page, and they pay you higher to do those. So that is definitely a good strategy to, like, bash out those in
Mm-hmm.
between your schedules for sure.
Yeah, so the covers are great. I love doing them. There is something that I'll never not be able to do the main stories because that, like I said, I love to tell stories. Um, I I just I think that the interiors of the comic book are going to be the thing that people that really love the comic book are going to remember the most.
Mhm.
But you can also get a little shine just by doing the covers of a lot of books. So
Yeah.
who knows which is better, but you can do really well with covers.
Yeah, I think also to your point with the covers is usually the individuals who will be able to do that had something special, like people like a Tyler Kirkham or whatever. They had some special history that
Mm-hmm.
then people like, and also very unique art style, and people instantly like, that's a Tyler Kirkham cover, that's a Ryan Stegman cover. I want,
Mm-hmm.
you're collecting just based off of that, and it's because you have this, historic now legacy. So you have that collector draw, which
Right.
is really cool. So last question, and then I'll let you go. Silly question: do you watch any Marvel? Like, I know before in the past you make jokes, but do you watch any Marvel movies, or like, are you a consistent Marvel movie watcher, or no?
I wouldn't say I'm consistent, but I do see a lot of them. My kid, I've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, so
Sure.
I don't know that I would watch all of them if they weren't into it,
Mm,
because it, I'm too picky about what's happening, and
for sure.
I'm like in the comic book, um,
Yeah.
but initially when like Avengers came out, the novelty of seeing them on screen was so much that I watched all, I ate them all up. But now the
Yeah.
novelty's kind of worn off, and now I'm just more of a curmudgeon about how they don't get this, they don't do it exactly how I would do it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I still end up seeing quite a bit of them though. I mean, I don't see all of them, but my kids they're always down to watch them. So if I'm trying to like hang out with them, I'm like, hey, what about if we do this, and then they'll watch it with me. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I take it for sure you'll catch the Avengers Doomsday. I think that's probably the movie that will draw everybody back into capitalizing on that nostalgia, and every single actor on the planet is in it. So that's probably going to be a jumping on point for a lot of people.
I may have visited that set. I'm not going to say one way or another.
What?
No, no, I can't talk about it.
Wow, bro. Okay, so I can't let you go off of that. So just one. So, is there perks? Um, have you, like with Venom or anything in the past, anything you've worked on in the past? Have you gotten invites to cool things, or got to meet like actors, or actors want insight about a character, or anything relating to like the bigger kind of, even on the game side, like Insomniac games, anything like, you ever have interesting conversations outside of just the comic industry specific?
Absolutely. So yeah, I may or may not have visited the Doomsday set.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
not gonna confirm or deny.
Wow.
I did also. I didn't visit the Venom set, but I did go to the premiere, and I met Tom
Mhm.
Hardy and
Oh,
uh,
cool.
the director. And then I also went before the movie was out in theaters. I went to the Sony lot and met with the president of Sony Films.
Ah,
Um,
very cool, man.
and then I got to watch the movie in a theater that they have on the lot by myself. Well, with an assistant there, and then a security guard who made sure I didn't film anything. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so that was pretty neat. That so yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, things crop up every once in a while, and it's always pretty neat. Uh,
Perks, the
I
perks
mean,
of being the big dog.
yeah,
That's
it's
cool,
it's
dude.
funny because to me, like the reward is a high selling comic that people love, and but then the people around you are so much more impressed with the ancillary stuff. So it's fun to do those things so that I have like the pictures to show, that, to get to say like, oh yeah, no, like this is a big deal. Um, Whereas the comics are the big deal to me.
Yeah, I kind of like, one thing that I'm a little bit disappointed with is I wish and I think it would actually help the comics as well as an industry, but when they're promoting these movies that are relating to the, let's say if you're working on a Thor comic, it'd be cool to have them kind of be mingled a little bit more at like these Comic Cons or whatever. You could have the comic artists near, like, I just think it would maybe uplift it a little bit more. That's my hot take. Obviously, take that as you will, but I would like to see more potential integration there. I think that would be pretty cool for the industry.
I think personally, though, like if you're talking about like how they do panels like in Hall H for these movies, and if they had me up there, I would die, and I would be so scared, and it would wreck me for like 3 months thinking about it beforehand. So
that's true.
Careful what you wish for.
That's true. I remember Larry David. He had said on an interview that he hated doing interviews, and he said it was so bad for him and so much anxiety that it would creatively destroy him for like 2 months leading up to that interview. He's like, that's all I could think about was just being in this stupid interview promoting my show. So that's interesting. That's really cool that you mentioned that. That's a cool thought, actually. Yeah. Okay, well, listen, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. We got a deep dive into all of that of Ryan Stegman. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in for today's episode.